What is going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rage, back with another Outriders World Slayer video to bring to you, and today we're going to be looking into the first one of the brand new armor sets that was actually leaked. Well, I say leaked, but it was actually shown off by the socials for Outriders, and we're actually going to look into the Concussioners, which is going to be the first new legendary set for the Devastator. Now, I'm really excited for this because, as you probably know from watching our channel, I am a Technomancer and a Devastator main, and I am so curious as to how this new set bonus is actually going to work. But what we're going to do first is we're going to show the video. After that, we're then going to be able to pause it in between certain parts, and then we'll actually break it down. We'll have a look into it a little bit more, and basically how viable do we actually predict it to actually be when World Slayer does actually drop. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn the microphone off, and we're just going to press play on the video so everyone gets to be able to enjoy. Now, I did try doing this full screen, but for some reason it wouldn't record the video, so I'm going to give it a go this way instead. Alright, so that was the video. I hope you've enjoyed. Right, let's have a quick dive into like the key moments on this, like the new mods, the new armor set, all that kind of good stuff, and let's see if we can like break it down and see what actually makes this so good. So obviously we've got the Concussioner, and this is the full set right in there in its glory. And now obviously we've seen the Mythos before, when obviously it comes with Omen, and we've already done a video on that one, covering all the basics on that one. But the armor set itself is absolutely gorgeous. Just absolutely stunning. In terms of like Devastator pit armor pieces, they do have some really good ones, and obviously they're very unique looking, and obviously they're primarily directed towards being like made out of rock, all that kind of good stuff. But I do think that this one is probably the best looking, with the fact that it incorporates skulls, incorporates bones, and also it incorporates like some heavy duty metal, almost kind of like power armor from like Fallout. That's the kind of vibes I'm getting from this. So overall, I think it's absolutely stunning. It's probably the best looking armor set they've actually ever released for the Devastator, and I do think that's probably, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting my hands on this. So right, so what we'll do is we'll break it down first, and we'll look into this first mod. So featured mod is Chip Off the Old Block, where your sprint attack creates a golem clone that deals 300% AoE damage. Now, from what we can tell, obviously this is a melee. We've got a new animation. Whether this is actually just because of the Devastator in general, or whether this is actually going to become off the set bonus, is yet to be seen just right now. But the fact that we do get a sprint attacker that does a golem clone to be able to duplicate our melee, and the fact that it deals 300% AoE damage is absolutely huge. Like, we've done melee builds before on this channel. We've had a look into Seismic Commander, and we've also had a look into Martial set kind of bonuses to be able to see which is the best way to be able to actually do a melee build. And you can actually do a melee build in the current state of the game, but this kind of like takes it to a whole new level. So we are actually getting a new melee focus kind of set, and that's what the Concussioners is there to be able to do. Now, this build I genuinely think is going to be a mainstay for anyone that actually does want to be able to do melee builds, and I think it's so fun to be able to actually summon a separate clone of yourself to be able to do so. Now, the fact that this will come, this mod seems to be tied to that of Golem, so you case yourself in stone, and then you send yourself a stone copy of yourself out as well. I think it's, yeah, it's probably, it even looks fun. To be able to send those out. Now, the interesting thing is the fact that it seems to give us a faster melee animation as well. So you'll see actually on the video that we're looking at right now that they start exactly the same time. Like, if you look at the frames, it's about here that it starts getting a bit faster, and then it comes down with the slam there. And so it seems to improve how quickly you can actually melee in this game as well. So it's going to have like a separate bonus. It's not by a massive amount, but any bonus is a bonus, let's be honest. So therefore, I do think that it's actually a really good kind of mod to be able to actually go for. Now, this also does cover the set bonus as well. So the set bonus is store up and deal 80% of the melee damage you take in a 10-meter radius. So that means that as long as we are constantly being surrounded by enemies, we're storing up damage, and then we can actually release a massive amount of damage in a short amount of time just from actually doing our stomp. So that will be probably what this animation is, where we do the little spin around and make it all look all fancy. And you can see there's like a little animation here that actually does cause kind of like a visual thing to be able to let us know when we're actually releasing that energy as well. So everything's all good there. So if we actually do continue a little bit forward, because obviously they're trying to show this all off, so a little bit forward, we now have the new mod, which is forced feedback. Now, if you actually pay attention to the very bottom, you can tell that this is a reflect bullets mod. So therefore, we are actually starting to see reflect bullets take on a more kind of offensive kind of approach when it comes to its skill. Because most people currently right now or literally don't put any mods into it whatsoever, and they literally just hold it out and then cancel it straight away to be able to get the 45% anomaly power boost just from the paladin node. So the fact that we now have a new mod for it, which is create a barrier that explodes on contact, and doing more damage per enemy that's in range. So therefore we're actually going to have this kind of like floating around effect that's constantly happening. And so the more enemies that are actually within close range, the more damage that will actually deal. So eventually just kind of like, you know, you can run through people. Use your melee. Obviously, you can surround people with it. It's basically a close quarters, very close quarters kind of range kind of set as well. So I do think this is kind of interesting. I'm not entirely sure how the playbase is going to kind of like take a reflect bullets kind of offensive build. I mean, I've experimented in the past with auto reflect and being able to send bullets back, but it takes heavy investment. It's kind of long impale, but it's worse than impale. And the fact that it only works on enemies that actually shoot bullets, we now have something to be able to get around that. So we are actually able to do damage, do offense without the need for any kind of like bullets coming in as well. So I think that's going to be great. So we can see as well that this is working with the auto reflect mod because they have their gun out as well. So it is going to work with both the normal versions of the reflect bullets as well as using auto reflect as well. So if you do actually get that as one of your mods, then you're not going to be out of luck when it comes to it. So it does show off a little bit more footage, and obviously that's the AOE kind of like stored energy that comes with the set. So obviously very it's kind of fancy looking, let's be honest. It's not too bad at all. And then that pretty much wraps up everything. So let's dive into this a little bit more now. If you haven't seen this screenshot before, this is the new Outriders outpost that's going to be coming when it comes to World Slayer. So this is Bozzified's new version. So if you do see Bozzified, let him know how awesome this actually looks. So on the left hand side, so we'll do a quick overview of this. So left hand side, we've got all the ascension levels. So you can see here that we're ascension level 150, so we've got our points here to be able to actually start putting into our categories, and this is just to show basically how that's currently split for this current build that's actually made. And obviously it's got your Apocalypse tier to let you know what tier this build can actually handle, in terms of like where if you go in and you make your own, you'll be able to change that as and when, well, basically how you want. And then obviously you got your socials things over here. Now I think this is currently it's a work in progress for so it's not quite kind of ready as it currently stands, because this description here, which is not for the Concussioners set bonus, is actually the description of chip off the old block. So that will actually change. So because that is the exact same description as that, so therefore we'll actually get something a little bit different in there. But we'll cover the set bonus in a second, but we've already done it in the video, but we'll cover it a little bit more in a second. So we've got our packs trees here, we've got our skills there, and we've got our main skill tree here, and then at the bottom we've got every single piece of gear that we're actually using. So the packs tree, in terms of this, what they've done is they've gone for a firepower route because it is top tree, and then they actually get to this node. And the reason why they go for this one is because this is the only one that triggers with golem and reflect bullets. And what that means is while those skills are active, you actually deal impulses relative to how much armor you actually have. And this, when we get into the build a little bit later, I'll explain why armor is so important and why they've actually gone for this tree to be able to actually deal so much damage. In terms of the skill tree, they have gone for a bottom tree approach to then go middle, and the reason why they've gone middle is obviously to pick up all this armor. I do think that there was a couple of changes I would probably make if they were going to be making this, because when it comes to armor, we do have this node that's quite useful, we have this node that's quite useful, and you do have some really good armor modes that comes from this one as well. So there's a couple of different ways they could have actually gone. The only thing I'm very disappointed with is the fact that they didn't grab Strong Armor the Anomaly, and everyone knows that Strong Armor the Anomaly is probably the main reason as to why you actually melee as a Devastator, so it would have made sense to actually grab that. It'll be interesting to see if that actually does pair really nicely with Chip Off the Old Block, as in, like, can you actually stack it from yourself doing it, as well as that mod, but we'll find out. But obviously they have grabbed the additional melee damage, so obviously this made sense for them to actually do that. In terms of the actual gear, let's have a quick look. So obviously we've seen the Mythos with Omen, we've already covered that. We noticed that it actually has gone down from 100% increased damage to 30%, so clearly playtesting has actually caught that one. We do have the Guillotine, which we actually did see in the gameplay, where Radiation, Splash, Moaning Winds, and Life and Death, which has taken a slight nerf by the looks of things, because I'm pretty sure it used to be, was it like 25 or 33%? It was one of the two, so it has gone down a little bit. Standard pistols, obviously they're not really planning to be able to use this. Now, when it comes to this, obviously anomaly power is the key thing to be able to look out for, because anomaly power determines, sorry, wrong choice of words, determines how strong your melee damage actually inflicts, because your melee damage is affected by your anomaly power. So it does look like they've picked up some really good mods to be able to obviously go into a melee build, so let's have a quick look at that. So we have got claws to be able to inflict vulnerable on all enemies that get hit, so we can deal more damage on any kind of like follow-up. Auto Reflect, which is not a tier 3 mod, but I imagine that's going to be, because this is a work in progress, that's just how it currently looks. But obviously we did actually see that in the gameplay. Force Feedback is that new tier 3 mod that we were looking at, where the barrier inflicts 1.1 million points of damage and is increased for every enemy in close range up to 10 times. And we do have Rockfall, which is a new one which you haven't seen on the video, where skill throws a debris bomb at a direction of a random enemy every 5 seconds for 4.9 million points of damage. Every enemy hit by the debris bomb fragment receives 30% more melee damage. So we have an intrinsic way from just having our golem up to be able to actually debuff enemies to to be able to deal more damage in terms of a follow-up. We also have gone for they grabbed the leg plates as well, which is Equator, where damage blocked by the skill is released as a damaging anomaly disc that rotates around the player. The damage dealt is increased dependent on the amount of damage blocked by the skill. So these two combine together, so we actually do have things covered for any kind of like bullet skills that actually do come in to be able to deal more damage outwards, and we also have it in case they just run towards you, so like any kind of like melee enemies, Force Feedback will actually deal with those as well. Preservance Fists will actually increase your melee damage in case you actually do fall below 30% health. And we have a new mod here which is called Concussive Force, where your melee skills deal 25% more damage in a 100% bigger range. I think this is going to be probably the nicest one to actually pair with Chip Off the Old Block, because we are doing AoE melee damage, so therefore we can actually deal even more damage just from that. And then obviously Chip Off the Old Block, which we've already covered. So that pretty much wraps up everything to do with the Outriders Outpost in terms of like the build and all that. So what they did actually do is give us some like screenshots of the actual gear, and you can see how nice this actually does look and a little bit more up close. But when it comes to the set bonus, which is the one thing that we're actually looking forward to, which is taking damage generates melee energy. So it's not just melee damage that actually does charge this, it's just damage in general. And using your melee skill releases the energy, dealing 80% of the taken damage within a 10-meter radius. The released damage scales with your armor, which is why it's so important, and generated energy depletes gradually every 2 seconds. So you kind of want to continually keep using your melee, keep that on as low a cooldown as possible through the use of mods. And the fact that this really scales with armor really does mean that Middle Tree is actually going to be a great use of this actual set bonus. So it's interesting to see that we actually do have that kind of build coming out now. So I'm interested to try the Concussioners. I do think it's going to be a lot of fun. Is it going to be competitive? Well, that's going to be yet to be seen. It's going to be interesting to see how the scaling kind of plays like a big part in that. The main reason why is because obviously when you use Golem, you don't gain any additional armor or anything like that. It just purely gives you a 65% damage reduction against anything that comes in, which means that it is actually kind of working against the set bonus in that sense, just from actually having Golem up. So it's a bit of a weird one, really. I'm not entirely sure how they've kind of got themselves into that kind of position, but basically the more you use Golem, the less damage you're going to be taking, the less damage you're actually going to be dealing when it comes to actually using the set piece. So whether they've accounted for this is yet to be seen, but overall I genuinely love the look of this set bonus. I'm genuinely excited to be able to get my hands on it, and I genuinely think it's going to be a lot of fun, even if it isn't competitively viable. And then that just leaves like the last couple of like screenshots. So obviously we've got some really nice looking screenshots here. I like the look of that one, but my personal favourite's this one, with the fact that we've got one going one way and obviously yourself going the other way. I genuinely love the look of this photo. But overall, yeah, everything is absolutely stunning. I hope you've learned something useful with yourselves. I hope you're looking forward to it. Let me know in the comment section down below, is there anything that takes your fancy from this? Is this going to be a set bonus that you would actually look to be able to use yourself? And what would you suggest to be able to go slightly different compared to obviously what you've seen when it comes to the actual Outriders Outpost build that they actually did for the footage? So that pretty much wraps up the video. Thank you all so much for making your way to the end of the video. Thank you so much to the Babylonian family as always for their continued support. And that just leaves me to say, keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on their next video.